I often say that leaders are lovers, effective leaders, lovers of people and the human condition. And the intent there is always looking to elevate them to that next level.
Right.
Okay. You cannot lead people if you don't love them.
Yeah.
Think about that for a second. Okay. You cannot lead them.
This individuality stuff is a bunch of crap.
There's a reason why.
A master of innovation.
The key to this growing is you.
Any rational person would give up.
I can't disagree with that.
Make sure that we're not prisoners of our own experiences.
You need a team of great people.
Will not tolerate a loser.
What they need is a common vision.
Helping organizations win one veteran at a time. This is the Greencastle Podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Greencastle Podcast. My name's Joe Crandell. I'm the CEO and managing partner of Greencastle Consulting. Today we have Daniel Harris. He's an author. He's a 30-plus year veteran of the Army National Guard, and we're extremely happy to have him with us. Daniel, if you don't mind, can you do a quick intro, and then we'll just get right into it.
Yes, good morning. And Joe, first of all, thank you for having me. I appreciate this opportunity to be here and having this conversation with you. So Dan Harris, 30 plus years in the U.S. military, serving in the Army National Guard, both on active duty as well as the reserves. As of last October, recently published the book On Guard, The Four Pillars of Leadership, in which I examine the four pillars upon which I feel that all elements of leadership rests upon. And those are courage, love, integrity, and passion, with an acronym of CLIP. Additionally, I run Muddy Boots Leadership, which is a consulting organization, and have several other organizations that I work with, and then some special projects. For example, a scholarship program in West Africa, and looking to build schools. So,
yeah, we'll get into all that. I appreciate that. Do you go by Daniel or Dan? Does it matter?
Dan, whatever is comfortable for you. Just
don't call you late for dinner, right?
Right.
All right, so we'll go with Dan. And so Dan, it's again one of those things where I always enjoy talking with people that have a passion for leadership like you do. And the book with the acronym CLIP, compassion, love. What was I again? Integrity. Integrity. Okay. And so I'm sorry.
Yeah, courage, love, integrity, and passion.
That's right. Yeah, I apologize. I might have gone to the Naval Academy, but I'm not a quick learner. So I really
I'll forgive you.
Yeah, exactly. The Army-Navy rivalry goes on,
Right.
But really appreciate it. And so, if you don't mind, I'd like to start off with your charity work in Sierra Leone. I know you said that you had, a special project out there. You sponsor a school. Tell me a little bit more about that, because I think that's an awesome thing. You're giving back, and you're making sure that young children, specifically young females in West Africa, are getting the education that they deserve and they need. And so I'd love to hear more about that.
Thank you, Joe. So the scholarship program empowers or assists students to pay their tuition in their schools that they're currently in. Our criteria is very simple. It's need-based and very high academics.
Right.
And the focus is primarily on girls. And the reason for that is to start at an early age to build a foundation of leadership upon which they do their reading, writing, and arithmetic, et cetera, and exposing them to successful women here in the United States, in Africa, and around the world. I want to impress upon them the importance of their voice as females. It's extremely important. We're at a time when we need to leverage every one of our resources against all of the problems when we're trying to develop solution sets. I don't think we have we don't have the ability to separate out and think, well, we can exclude a portion of our society,
right,
and be able to come up with the solutions that we need. We just need to include women in the conversation. And that starts at a basic level with education. That builds confidence, that gives them the exposure and the opportunities. So I'm very, very focused on that. This is our 5th year. This past
nice.
June, we completed our ceremony of awarding 23 students. And like I said, we recruit them through a strenuous process.
Right.
And we look at need and very high academics. And I'm extremely proud of it. It's something that I feel very good about.
Now, is there a specific age range, or is it pretty much just needs based, and the age doesn't matter? So the reason why I'm asking is you said you've been doing it for 5 years. Have you had do you have a really cool success story of somebody that maybe you sponsored at the secondary level of education, and they've had your program, and then they've moved on to the next stage of their life, and it's just been a tremendous lift for them to have this scholarship fund? Or is it still so early that they're all still in school? You understand my question?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So for the most part, yeah, most of them are still in school.
Okay.
I think about 1 or 3 of them. So 3 of them have actually graduated and moved on to either some form of a business, or they've gone into college. But the last set of students from the original group are actually finishing their high school career now.
Okay.
And so that's exciting to see. And knowing that I contributed to their success, and at least getting to as far as they've gotten.
That's
who
awesome.
Otherwise, without the assistance, may have had some tremendous difficulty. Because what typically would happen is, if a student cannot pay their school fees,
Right.
They will often be taken out of school, and either have to wait until the parents can generate funds, or they go turn their attention to doing something else, either farming, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with farming. It's an honorable profession. We need farmers. Just what I'm focused on is, when you have a genius on your hands, student who does extremely well in very austere conditions, living in very austere conditions, they still manage to do extremely well in school. We need to encourage that. We need to empower that, and more or less, give energy and acknowledgement to that. So that's the process behind that. In terms of the age, typically look at students between 10 and 14 years of age.
Okay.
So in respect to our system here, those would be students in their junior high, into high school range.
Okay.
So just to kind of frame a picture, so that people can get a picture of who we're talking about.
No, that's really cool. I think it's also a testament that not only are you talking about leadership and coaching people on leadership, but you're also exhibiting it in that way, where you're showing, hey, this is how you are a good leader, is by supporting and developing younger leaders. And I think that's also one of the themes of your book, is where you think it's very important. I agree with you completely that it's, as a leader, it's your job to foster and create the future leaders, but also to learn and emulate the positive leadership styles of other folks. In your career, what's that?
Yes, absolutely. First of all, the goal of leadership is to replace you.
Yeah. That's kind of tough, though. So, like, I'm in a position of leadership at Greencastle, and I am trying to foster the leadership levels below me and grow them and teach them. But it's also a little scary, because I know someday that I'm going to be walking out that door, and I'm not going to have a job. But that's great. But that's you're right. I agree with you that it's to essentially build yourself out of a job with leadership.
Right. And to the extent that you've done that effectively, you're really never out of a job, because then you move into the role of being a graybeard, where you give counsel.
Yeah, I'm almost there.
I'm almost there. And you help with shaping the mind of how the organization goes. Now, to do that well, I tell you, your focus remains on the objective. It's not about you, right? And that's one of the main things that I've walked away from with the years of the military. Really, none of this is about you. It's about the objective. It's about our mission. And so you put into place those things that will ensure that this thing continues forward seamlessly. If you have to leave and the whole thing falls apart, then you're a bad leader.
Well, and do you really have a true business, right? And that's the other thing is if you walk away, it's a hobby, right? But if you can take a vacation or whatever and the whole thing continues without you, then you got a real business. But what I always I wouldn't say I struggle with it, but I always keep it at the front of my mind is the not trying to be right, but always trying to do the right thing, because sometimes they're the same thing, but in a lot of ways, workplace problems, interpersonal relationships come up and they have conflict because one person wants to be right so badly. And when the right thing is to let somebody else have the win, or to not fight so hard for this particular thing. And that's one of the things that I've seen in my interactions with not only my company but with my clients, where if I'm trying to be right, there's a lot of hostile air, and the atmosphere is hostile. But as soon as I make that mental shift in my own mind to say, you know what, it's not important that I'm right, let's do the right thing here, it changes the dynamics of what we're trying to accomplish, and we accomplish so much more. Have you had an experience with that, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I tell you, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King said, the time is always right to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Okay. And you think about that. Primarily so when you're the team lead, okay, or you're in that role where you have members in your team that you're leading. It could be on a project, it could be in a command situation, it could also be in an office environment, right?
Right.
At the end of the day, the climate that you set or that you've created and you nurture, that environment is what's going to sustain you. Okay.
Right.
It's taking yourself out of the situation. You are already the focus. You are already the center of attention. Right. So the goal is empowering that team to where they're all on the same page in terms of what your vision is for whatever it is, the mission, our objective, whether it's first, second, third quarter, what we're looking to achieve.
Right.
And when you can do that, and each person has internalized that, okay, you don't have to exert the fact that, well, I'm the boss. Okay.
And if you do, that's a problem, right? If you have to say, we're doing this because I'm the lieutenant or I'm the CEO, there's an issue there, right?
I shared this with a captain once. As a battalion commander, when you're going to visit your companies, right? It's always a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
I was
appreciative.
Exactly. I was appreciative of the fact that commanders and those company staffs, I mean, they went through the hoops. They straightened out all of their offices. They got all their books, their metrics, everything laid out, because you're coming to have a discussion with them about their daily functions. Excuse me. And I learned a couple of things. Whenever I went to visit, I took them a gift or a bone, so to speak.
Okay.
Okay. And the command sergeant major would, he made that observation and said, sir, these guys look forward to you coming because you always bring them something. Okay. And that something would be responses, up to date, updates on their whatever it is they're looking for. They've inputted X numbers of soldiers for schools, and they have not gotten the confirmation yet in ATARs, or they've requested additional funds for, say, ADOS, which is the active duty special work, to bring on 2-3 soldiers to do some extra work around the armory, and they're still waiting for that. So when you show up and you bring closure to these things for them, or they ask questions about, hey, what's the status of Sergeant Johnson's school request? We're 30 days out, I haven't seen, and you can turn to your ops guy and he'll pull up and give you responses right there. They start to look forward to you coming in because it's their opportunity to get the boss to themselves, on stage by themselves, and to address their issues. But I witnessed a commander, a captain, just pointing to his rank that I'm the one in charge with some issue that they were having. And I explained, to him privately in his office that to the extent that you're pointing to your rank,
Right.
that you're the captain, you're in charge, means you've already lost it.
Exactly.
And,
Yep.
and he said, so what do you mean? I said, for starters, the leader should never have to say he or she is the leader.
Right.
And I attribute leadership to a lady, right? A lady will never tell you she's a lady. You will look at her and just tell.
Right. Okay.
And so when you walk into a room and you look around and it's a room filled with people and there are conversations and things happening, and you're trying to determine who's the focus here, who's the center of gravity in here. All you need to do is look. That individual, by the way they carry themselves, just their aura, etc., you'll be able to tell. You'll be able to tell. And you should never have to point to your rank or point to self that, I'm in charge. It means you're not. You've lost it.
No, I agree with you there. And you said something that I think is also very key in that story about how you pulled that individual aside in private. And I think that as I work in the business world and get to know leaders of other companies, and just I think some of those what we would consider, and this isn't meant to be like we're the experts, but it's some of those basics around leadership of praising in public, criticize in private. Don't set the example. So if you're asking somebody to do something, be willing to do that yourself. All these leadership principles that I think are just pounded into somebody in the military, and you learn, I think are sometimes lost on the civilian community. So I know as a coach and with Muddy Boots Leadership that you're trying to help leaders understand those things. What do you think, either out of your book or just from your experiences, are other aspects of, and I'm not saying basic, but just some of the fundamentals of leadership that might be missing from, the civilian equivalent of, a corporation or a department?
Yeah, and you touched on quite a few of them, and also that falls on the military as well. Even though we're in an environment where we're immersed with these concepts and examples, and we see very successful leaders, both NCOs and officers who've done well, there's still quite a large number in uniform who have not internalized that. Yeah. You wonder, which Kool-Aid they drank from. It's like, how can you miss this, right? Well, the civilian world is no different, and I think what we bring in addition to that firm foundation is the discipline and the rigor, and having the experience of applying those principles under pressure, under other than normal circumstances or conditions, and not forgetting or confused or basically kind of flailing around trying to figure out, what do I do now? I remember one of the things learned at the academy was this: always do something. And at that point, you revert to that gut instinct that will take you through, because of the immersion and all of what you've been, what you've done. We can discuss the merits of what you did later on.
Right.
But when there's fire at the gates and the enemy is pouring through, that's not the time to give the polar bear salute, and say, oh my, you will not do well after that event. Trust me. Always do something. Well, in order to be able to do that, it means that you have to be well read on, have your finger on the pulse, and know what's going on in your environment, in your AO, in your organization, with every member of your team.
Right.
So it's not a glorious position. It's actually a position that involves arduous work.
Right.
People think, being in charge means, I tell others what to do. I submit that there's a lot more involved, in it than that. It's the leading of people, not the management, the leading of people that's going to get them to open up that creativity and innovation, which is what you're looking for when we're looking at business, right? Because by and large, all these guys went to the same schools, studied
Right.
the same principles and concepts and everything else. One
Yep.
CEO to the other, right? Same thing with your second level leaders, your VPs and your other executives. So what's going to distinguish your organization from the next guy? Okay, they're all just as smart. They're all graduated as valedictorians. They all, have had the same exposures and so on and so forth.
Right.
It's the leading, okay, that's going to give you that edge, that ultimately is going to contribute to your bottom line, which in business, that's what we're there for, to make profits. Okay.
Yep.
And it's not leading that's done through intimidation, humiliation, and fear, but rather leading that's done through inspiring. So I often say that, managers motivate, leadership inspires.
Yeah, that's
So
good. Yep.
if you show up to work 3 days in a row late, your manager cuts your pay, you're motivated to show up in time. The next
You should be, right?
you should be. Leadership inspires so that you don't even show up late.
Right.
Right.
That doesn't even cross your mind. Yep.
Precisely. It's not even part of that mindset. It's you're first to come, last to leave. You've tasted the Kool-Aid. You become self-engaged because you've been inspired through leadership to have some autonomy in how you do your work, in what you do in accomplishing your work. You're given parameters.
Right.
This is the objective. Peel the onion. That's it. Right.
Yep.
Rather than being told how you want it done in a very prescriptive manner. People appreciate their ability to leverage what they know in getting their work done, as opposed to standing over them. And in fact, why would you want to do that? You've hired them
for that, right? If you're managing multiple people.
Yeah, you've trained them.
Yeah.
Just cut them loose and back away. You want, if anything, you want to be able to control the reins with speed and, how fast or how slow they go.
Right.
And not necessarily, micromanaging, so to speak, and in a very prescriptive style.
Right.
So the takeaway really is just that, the autonomy, respect for who they are as individuals, and the fact that they understand what the goal is.
Yep.
And now they're leveraging what they know, what they've learned, using your role to resource and provide the left and right limits of how far and what they need to do. And then they also know that you got their back.
Right.
When something is not going well or has not gone well.
So how do you coach organizations on finding that next level leader? So I think what typically happens is if you have a top sales guy or a top ops guy or a top whatever in their field, that those are usually the people that are slated for, let's say the top sales guy, he's the number one seller in the country. Those are usually the people that they say, okay, you should be the sales manager. And in my experience, sometimes that's not the right answer. But how would you coach a client on finding that next level down of a leader from a mass of people, of performers that obviously have the stratification of performance and outcomes?
Well, I tell you, in my role as a franchisee for Crestcom, I tell you that's one of the questions that we ask the vast CEOs and business leaders and owners, business owners.
Yeah.
What do you look for in your leaders? How do your managers become managers, right? And through research that they have done, they found out that 80% of the time, people elevate or get to that next level somewhat like they become parents. It's a natural evolutionary process, right? You've been in the company long enough.
Right.
You've done all the right things. You've perhaps worked on some, one or two good projects and yielded some results. So when there is an opening, right, the boss says, hey, Joe, Dan left. So starting Monday, you're in charge of that team, right? And there's all this initial excitement of hey, been promoted. And if it's a Friday, you probably go home and you share with the spouse, and you immediately start planning on how you're going to use that increase in pay. Perhaps, you were always planning for a pool in the backyard or something.
Right. Or buy a car or something.
Exactly. But immediately behind that, once the euphoria sets off, it's this, oh my God, okay, I'm in charge. What does that mean? So now there is the discussion in your mind, in your head that's going on. And then there's the discussion going on with your team, because when you show up on Monday and your team sees you packing up your box to move from your cubicle to the office, right? They have not necessarily been read in yet.
Right.
And they wonder, like, what's he doing? Right. So imagine the dynamics of what starts to set in. And then immediately from that, the next line from the boss is, oh, by the way, Joe, you need to start the search for your replacement because you just vacated a spot, right? And secondly, here are third quarter's expectations. This is what you need to meet. So immediately you have these two big elephants sitting on your shoulders.
Right. Welcome to leadership.
Welcome to leadership. And so a good question is, how do you lead your team through that process, and at the same time engaging in senior leadership's vision of what that objective is. So when you frame it and paint that picture, I tell you, leadership begins to get it. CEOs begin to get it, because 80% of the time it's, folks just move up. It's a natural evolutionary process, kind of like how, people become parents. One day it just happens.
Right. There's no instruction booklet.
And while you are good at your competency, okay, the leadership piece, the communicating, the executing the vision, how you get the team to produce,
right.
Those things don't have to do with your competency. They're not the levers and the buttons that you push to get the job done. These are the people now that you have to inspire. And our program, 1 year long, is what we work people through.
Okay.
And at the end, it's been very successful. The program through CASCOM has been out for about 30 years. We have over 25,000 clients worldwide.
Yeah.
It exists in over 60 countries, and it's presented in over 22 different languages.
Nice.
Fairly successful. And there's a network, a very supportive network that supports both me as an individual franchisee as well as the clientele. Program exists, focusing on utilizing subject matter experts, as well as having flexibility and consistency. Okay. Flexibility in that managers or CEOs, wherever they have their organizations and managers, they can fit the program into their schedules. And at the same time, it's consistent that if you have a manager in California and another one, say in the UK,
right,
they're on the same page in terms of what they're learning. Mm-hmm.
I think that's another key point is within any organization, and at Greencastle, we're the same way, is having that common operating picture, that ability to say, no matter where you are on the level of the organization, what your activities are that are supporting the mission, the goals of the company. And I think that's almost a responsibility of the leaders, one, to share, hey, lowest level staff, you're contributing to the mission of the company by doing A, B, and C, and then also rewarding those activities, because it's if you don't, then they're going to appear that it's not important, and it's just all lip service, right? So I completely agree with that. The other question I got for you is one of the things that I always preach is that somebody has to take control of their career on their own, right? As a leader, I can provide training, I can provide all sorts of resources. But I think as a leader and an up-and-coming leader, it's the leader's responsibility to take professional development, professional growth on their own shoulders. And I'd be interested in your thoughts on that. And if you if you have any sort of nuggets of wisdom on how people can do that in an effective way.
Well, a couple of things. So, first of all, when you hire a person, if it's the wrong person, it's very expensive.
Right.
Okay. Because then when you have to replace them, now it's doubly expensive.
Yep.
So going back to the leadership, onboarding, hiring the right people, right? That has nothing to do with competency. That's strictly on leadership, hiring the right people. And in order to do that, you're looking for that individual that has a passion for what it is they want to do. Let me just back up a little bit.
Yeah.
We've become so focused on, I'm going to finish high school, I'm going to go to college, and then I'm going to get a job. And I'm going to earn my pay, and I'm going to go shopping. And that's the cycle, right?
Right.
And, for the most part, 40 years go by, okay, just on average. You start work at 20 years old, you retire at 60, 40 years have gone by.
Right.
And I've seen studies where, on average, people make roughly $2.8 million in that 40 years.
Okay.
And I tell you, Joe, it's sad that most Americans at the end of that 40 years don't have 2.7 cents to show for it.
Yeah.
Okay. So there is something fundamentally wrong at the very base level, right, of our existence. As an adjunct professor, I have a session through, in my course where I bring in students to the Gap, which is between New York and New Jersey, the Delaware Water Gap. You have the mountains there, and we do a hike up the mountain, and we talk about business. We talk about some of the same characteristics of things I look at, courage, love, integrity, passion, leading with love, et cetera, et cetera. But one question that I always ask the students, and these are graduate students, it's a very simple question. Why are you doing this? It's a Saturday morning. Okay, you could be laying down back in your dorm watching Bugs Bunny with a box of crackers or something. Yeah, that's certainly what your friends are doing. But you're here. Why are you doing this? And I've gotten a variety of answers over the years. From I have an office. I've already gotten a setup waiting for me at Morgan Stanley. I'm going to work for my father or my parents' business. I am fifth generation business, whatever, owner or working in the company and so on and so forth. And I simply look at them and I tell them, that's not why you're going into that's not why you're doing this.
Right.
And they go through a whole bunch of answers, responses. And I tell them, until you realize that you're doing this because this is your choice, okay, any other response is futile. This has to be your choice.
Right.
Because when it's your choice, then you've taken ownership and responsibility for whatever the outcome is.
Right. And
now you don't have to worry about employing or bringing that guy or gal through your doors that has not arrived at that space and time. In other words, they're there. Yeah. They're there for a purpose. They're there for a reason, right? It's let's go with us, in the service, the Army or the Navy. At some point in your session and in your training, you've internalized and reconciled with yourself that, you know what, I want to do this.
Right.
Okay. And as a result of that, you are ready to deal with whatever comes your way. Whether you're working outside in the snow and it's 20 degrees outside and it's wet and miserable, or you're on a ship that's, rolling and tumbling and God knows what else is happening.
Yeah.
You're there because you want to be there. And I think when you have or you assess an employee or a team member who has arrived at that stage, you're not worried about, how do you get them motivated to doing their work?
Right. They're self-motivated in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, that solely rests with leadership. You can assess the wrong person, but depending on how you treat them as a leader, you can make them the right person.
Right.
Okay? Similarly, you can assess the right person onto your team, but depending on your behavior and how you lead, that right person becomes the wrong person.
Yeah, I agree with that. Definitely. Yeah, it's you don't want to admit it sometimes as a leader that maybe you misstepped or that you did something wrong that caused that person to not necessarily be in the position that you wanted them to be. But that is a true thing, is that there's a lot of responsibility when you're trying to grow leaders within your organization, for sure.
Everything rises and falls on the leadership. Everything.
Yeah.
Something as simple as it's 07. I'm ready to go to my first staff meeting. Okay. I get a phone call from a team member. Hey boss, can't come in. Been up all night. We just got in at 6 this morning. Emily was in the emergency all night with the baby, and we're just getting in. Understand, at that moment in your stride, right? You've broken stride to deal with this. It's not the time to start, preaching to Joe that, I need you here. It's 7,
right.
You're calling me and it's late, et cetera, et cetera. You simply pivot to another team member.
Exactly. Yep.
Dan, Joe's going to be out. He's been out all night with the baby from the emergency. I need you to step into the gap, take on his critical roles for the day. I'll be back in 2 hours or what have you. If you have any questions, I'll take it. Do you have any questions? No,
Yep.
Drive on. That's all that needs to happen. And then later on, you can circle back to find out how his family's doing. Exactly. And then find out how Joe's doing. But so typical, we immediately get into that management mode of, oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to do now. You were supposed to be here. And that individual is going to make note of that. Okay.
Right.
First of all, this is not the kind of boss that this is what wrong looks like. I don't want this.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And at some point, they begin to look elsewhere if those instances grow, and there's more than 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 times when you have this kind of a reaction. It's often been said that good employees don't quit their jobs; they quit their bosses.
Oh, I 100% agree with that. And it's not just, I don't know if it's necessarily the CEO of the company, but it's their direct manager or direct leadership level.
Always. And that's why our focus is growing and developing managers into leaders.
Yeah.
Okay. They've got the processes down. They've got the assemblies down. They've got all the buttons and all the competencies pieces down. Got it. The leadership piece.
Yeah. People is always, with Greencast, we focus on people and process, right? Technology should be the accelerator of those two things. And in everything that I've done, it's easy to do the process because you're just mapping it out, whatever, and you get it done. But it's always the people, whether it's internal politics within the organization that you're walking into, whether it's lack of understanding or self-awareness or emotional intelligence, whatever it is, the people aspect is the most difficult part. And I think as a leader too, you have to be okay with not having all the information, right? That's one thing I struggle with as a leader of Greencastle is I grew up in the organization, right, when it was 10 people, 20 people, and I knew everything that was going on. And as I've grown in the organization and take on more of a leadership role, my role's changed. And also my level of understanding has changed. I don't know what's going on at the lowest level of the project. And I get a sense of, not panic, but it's like, I want to know, but it's a futile effort because it's just so much is happening. You have to trust your leaders in between, and you have to be okay making certain decisions with maybe 80% of the information and just keep moving, right? And you
Absolutely.
touched on that before, is decisions. You have to make decisions, and leaders get paralyzed by not having enough information. And
Oh yeah, and you would you could relate to this. Many days I had to SP, okay, on a mission at 80 or 90%.
yeah,
Okay, and it was my mindset. Oh, I need 100% of my soldiers. Well, it's like, hey,
you're not getting
Lieutenant, SP is at this time. Okay,
Yeah.
the boss is at his, in his CP in his command post. He's
Yep.
waiting for you to call in, and because he's checking. He's looking at your recon, your route map, and saying, okay, Harris needs to be here now.
Yeah.
And you SP with what you got, and that's where you need to trust your leadership. Okay.
Yeah.
And there was no doubt in my mind many times between my XO, my executive officer, my operations NCO, my command sergeant major. Okay. It was clear in my mind that these individuals are ready and willing to spend the last spoon of blood in their veins on me and on the mission, if it came to that.
Right.
Okay. So you ask yourself, well, what created this? Okay. Folks coming from totally different backgrounds and lifestyles, ethnic groups, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But we've all signed on to this, particular thought and mindset. Very simply, it's the environment and the culture that you nurture within that organization. So to come back around to CLIP, we got courage. And talk about courage all day long, relating to leadership. We got integrity, we got passion, right? That love piece is where people kind of like, man, love kind of feels like jello. It feels kind of jello. What do you mean?
Touchy-feely. Ooh, I don't like that.
Touchy-feely, yeah, exactly. And I say to them, absolutely. I submit to you that you need to consider that a pillar, that as a pillar in your leadership. Okay, it's the love for another person, another human being. It's the love that Christ demonstrated, the love that Gandhi, King, Mother Teresa, these that brotherly love. Okay, I often say that leaders are lovers, effective leaders, lovers of people and the human condition. And the intent there is always looking to elevate them to that next level.
Right.
Okay. You cannot lead people if you don't love them.
Yeah.
Think about that for a second. Okay. You cannot lead them, because getting the work done is one piece. You trust that, in my case, the Army has trained all of us. You met the standard, thus you move to the next level, and here we are. Right. So I'm not worried about that. The Army's done its job. My focus now is inspiring you to that next level. And when people know that you care about them, it's often been said, and I've heard it before, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care about them. But I submit that the love element, or the love pillar, is key to leadership. In the book, I contrasted throughout history leaders who led with intimidation, humiliation, and fear, from Genghis Khan, to Pinochet, okay, to Hitler. History does not treat them well, okay?
No. At
the same time, I showed leaders who led demonstrating that pillar and how much they've accomplished.
Right.
And long after their time, their work continues. Their name is held in high regard. What they preached, what they taught, is still being passed along to others. So it sounds obvious, but it is not practiced as well. And I think the reason why you have so many people not satisfied or fulfilled in their jobs, it's what it is. It's a job. I show up at 9 and I leave at 5.
Right.
Okay. And what do you do when it's, 5 o'clock, 1700, you get a call from higher headquarters, the boss needs a briefing at, 2100.
Yeah.
Okay. You're 3 and you're 4, you're 1, i.e. your logistics, your ops, and your personnel folks are getting ready to go out the door. If you don't have, or you've not created the right environment that you've nurtured on that team, you cannot call timeout to say, hey guys, here's the topic. I need the 5 W's. I got to talk to the boss at 9 p.m.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a full-blown brief, but I need to be able to give him something or her something, by 9, where the team says, hey, sir, no sweat, we got this, and they sit there and they start to work.
Right.
And they each will do what they need to do. Maybe somebody was going to pick up the kids from the babysitter. Maybe someone was going to meet up with their spouse for an anniversary or something, a celebration. But it all comes back down to how you have nurtured an environment that is supportive and acknowledges the individual accomplishments, that has created autonomy in that team for folks to do their work. And your role is to, be at that 90,000 foot level looking down,
Right.
resourcing, advertising, and supervising, more or less. It's we're moving down an axis of advance, 100 miles an hour. Everything is firing on all cylinders. Got this. The only time that team should need you is if they get to a fork in the road,
Right.
some issue wasn't anticipated, or you didn't get through intel.
Right.
And the phone comes up, hey boss, I got a fork in the road. Do I go left or right? Right. That's all they need to know from you. So leadership decision needs to be timely. It needs to be quick, because they're on the ground where the tire meets the road.
Right.
And so you can't tell them, well, I need to think about this. Give me 24 hours. They don't have 24 hours.
Yeah.
Okay. So it comes back to what we talked about earlier. You got to do something. You got to do it now.
Yeah.
And we'll discuss the merits of that. And to the extent that you make those decisions consistently, good decisions, timely, et cetera, what do? We give you awards. We give you medals. We put you in parades. You have pictures in the newspaper. And to the extent that you make bad decisions most of the time, well, we kind of skin you alive and burn you at the stakes.
Yeah.
It all rests on leadership. It is so key.
Yeah, and I think to that point of making decisions and just being comfortable with not all the information, and then later on taking a kind of that armchair quarterback, that after action report kind of view, but also being comfortable with the criticism that comes along with that. So we do AARs, after action reports, after any sort of major engagement. They're in the civilian world, lessons learned, whatever you want to call it. But you got to be comfortable with being told, hey, you might not have made the right decision there. Here's a better way to do it. But they also have to understand that with the information that you had, you got to be comfortable with making that decision and knowing that eventually it might not have been the right one, but you had to make some sort of decision. Well,
and that's where being a genuine leader comes in, right? You don't know everything. Yeah. You're not going to know everything. And thus the reason for a team. Right. So, teams, I think those who've participated in sports understand that, okay? And it's difficult for a solo, an individual who's operated alone for a significant amount of time to really get that. When you have many people acting in concert towards a specific goal, okay, the result is lethal.
Oh yeah.
It's not a single individual. It's an entire team, and each member is operating or functioning in a specific role. I oftentimes will frame it this way: imagine you're sitting in an orchestral hall and you have a lone violinist playing Beethoven's Fifth. Sounds fine, sounds good, professional, hitting all the right notes, the pitch, the nuances, the tone, et cetera, okay? But now just close your eyes and imagine an entire orchestra.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you hear that sound, right? It's rich, it's fulfilling, and it feels inspiring.
Yeah.
It's the function of the team, getting many to act in concert towards a specific goal is so important, and the leader is the one that's going to set the tone, the spirit that's on that team.
Yeah, I agree completely with that. We were getting to about the end of the time, but Dan, how do people find you? How do they find your book? And also, just going forward, how can the community help you? The veteran community, the business community, help you be more successful?
Well, thank you for that, Joe. I appreciate having spent this time having this conversation with you. So the best way to reach me is through the website. It's www.muddybootsleadership.com.
Great.
Again, www.muddybootsleadership.com. And the book is available on Amazon. You can search either through author, Daniel Harris, or
here's the cover for anybody that wants to see it.
Right. You can see. You can search On Guard, the four pillars. And in terms of the community, I tell you, the veteran community has been tremendously supportive. Prior commanders, senior leaders.
Right.
I've got a great review from Major General, a 2-star general that I worked with at the Pentagon. Just very encouraging and inspiring, and that's some of what I alluded to in the book, where I've been fortunate to have spent time around individuals who I consider to be very smart,
right.
And at the same time approachable. You can talk to them, and I've learned a great deal from them. And primarily those have been GOs. I have found, I tell you, our GOs are some of the smartest people walking around, and thankfully so, right?
Right. I would hope.
we need them to be. In my more than 30 years, I maybe one that I would say I didn't necessarily care for because of their approach, but 30 years, well, that's a pretty good record, and so that then speaks to the system of vetting and how they're selected, et cetera, et cetera. For the most part, I think by the time they get to that level, these individuals are caring and also highly competent and very, very strong leaders. Okay. So the community has been extremely supportive and helpful, and many have reached out and bought the book and have provided me some tremendous feedback. I would ask that those of you who do read the book, go ahead and provide a review, a book review. That helps to make me better and elevate and improve my game, which is what I'm always looking to do. Because you never do arrive, you never do get there.
Right, lifelong learner, right, is another term for that, right? So
precisely.
Well, Dan, I appreciate it. Thank you for joining us, and thanks for everybody for listening and watching. Again, that book is On Guard, The 4 Pillars of Leadership by Daniel Harris. Find it on Amazon. And Dan, again, thank you. And we look forward to continuing to talk to you down the road.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Greencastle Podcast. Please be sure to give us a like, a thumbs up, a share. You can find us at greencastleconsulting.com/podcast or on all the major podcast channels and the social media channels, including our YouTube channel. Thanks very much. We'll see you on the next episode.